Hi everyone, this is Emma Richmond, and welcome to my presentation on the evolution of human culture. So let's get into it. So one of the key issues that anthropologists and sociologists that have been trying to understand is that of human culture and society, specifically to find out where our complex modern human lifestyles can be traced back to within the evolutionary history of our species. Humans today practice a very complex version of human culture, as we all know, because we're a part of it, which can be seen as very different from our less evolved human ancestors. In fact, it's often pointed out that it's really hard to measure cultural complexity within a society, especially within humans, and its history. However, when looking at the factors of evolution, specifically forces like natural selection and environmental change, we can witness a trend of modern human culture further expanding due to our species migration to different parts of the world, continued reliance on forming groups within the growing populations, and the development of key traits and technological advancements. So I will be using the specific definition of culture that's used in Pressbook's The Elements of Culture, which places culture under four distinct aspects. We have values, symbols, beliefs, and language. And I will also be including society into this towards the end, which I think really ties the four aspects of culture together. So basically, I will be discussing how modern human culture has been gradually shaped by the evolution of our earliest human ancestors, spanning from our early hominin ancestors all the way to more modern Homo sapiens, in a way which gives us important insight into why our current societies operate in the ways in which they do today. So first of all, we have values. A significant aspect of the evolution of modern human culture has been that of human values, specifically the development of a complex value system. So 100 million years ago, our earliest primate ancestors valued survival and reproduction above all else. And although the same remains true to modern humans in a way, our value systems have increasingly evolved to become more complex and reliant on other factors, not just survival. We can track this evolution of values by looking at the history of tool usage within our human ancestors. So the first species rank of early modern humans to develop a more sophisticated tool was the Homo erectus, who evolved some 2 million years ago from early hominid ancestors to become more selective in their tool-making process. Tracking this trend further to Homo sapiens, which emerged under 1 million years ago, we see a greater use of foresight and planning as Homo sapiens opted for certain raw materials for specific purposes and specific tools, as we can see in this image above. Lastly, the Neanderthals furthered this innovation by heightening their values of utility and sophistication through the creation of stone tools. To kind of bring in another thing we have begun to value as our species has evolved, the necessity for community, which occurred later in our evolutionary history because of our early culture of foraging. Since foraging for food relied on forming groups within populations for survival and was one of the primary reasons why our early human ancestors grew the confidence and ability to migrate beyond Africa. Both of these aspects led to the growth of community reliance and eventually led to the development of the complex system of agriculture that I will be talking about a little bit later. The second and third aspects that I've kind of morphed together because they're pretty similar is symbols and language. These are other important aspects of the evolution of human culture that can somewhat be tracked to our use of symbols, such as hand gestures and early artistic endeavors, which can be seen as the first evidence of human communication. Our early hominin ancestors thrived in the forested regions of Africa, indicating their lifestyle to be more arboreal, not sure how to pronounce that. But when the environmental conditions changed to the savanna and grassland types, we see bipedalism beginning to develop. Bipedalism freed up our ancestors' hands to not only give them the important ability to make and use complex tools and develop better food gathering technology, but also towards the discovery of hand gestures and early forms of communication. Although this is still being studied within the fossil record of the Neanderthal species and being debated by conflicting scientific viewpoints, the Neanderthal fossil history actually shows evidence of symbolic usage of natural pigments for various non-utilitarian purposes. These pigments could have been used for art, like some of the cave paintings produced by modern humans. The development of an importance of symbols and rituals leads scientists to believe that the evolution of the Neanderthals to have more complex brains than their earlier ancestors, and the development of some signs of social learning and cooperation has led to human culture becoming more complex and further akin to how it exists today. The culture of using symbols and hand gestures for more efficient communication eventually led to the development of a spoken language, although the exact date of this emergence has long been debated between scientists and anthropologists. Neanderthals could have possibly created the first spoken human language based on their throat anatomy and complex information they managed to pass on to each other. Nevertheless, our early human ancestors have laid the framework for this more intelligent form of communication with their ability to pass on tool-making techniques and other cultural practices, either through nonverbal communication or some early spoken form. And the second to last aspect, or actually the last aspect, is human society. And so with the ability of our early human ancestors to communicate and form groups came their migration into different parts of the world and different environments, which all culminated into the development of one of the most influential aspects of human culture, an agricultural system, which laid the framework for modern human society as we see it functioning today. The important cultural shift between the foraging lifestyle and the development of agriculture has happened pretty recently, about 12,000 years ago. And according to the textbook, humans evolved into a lifestyle of sedentarianism, which is the practice of basically staying in one place rather than continuously moving and migrating to other parts of the world, which led to the more modern practice of agriculture, which is reliant on staying in one place to utilize that land. To quote the textbook, quote, "Since successful agriculture produced a much greater amount of food and other resources per unit of land compared to foraging, the population growth rate skyrocketed, and other people could focus on other tasks," end of quote. So this is when modern humans began to specialize in different tasks, sparking new innovations in new areas like the arts, religion, and trading. So these people would separate into groups and later form societies based on their respective roles within their society, forming settlements which ultimately led to urbanization. Therefore, the development from a culture centered around foraging towards one dependent on agriculture led to the ability of modern humans to shift towards expanding in other directions that were less focused on their immediate survival, which came with it an emergence of different ways of life, belief systems, art, and many other aspects of modern society. And lastly, I quickly wanted to mention a 2012 study which shows that the earliest evidence of modern human culture emerged from certain practices of sand material culture, which is a group of early Stone Age inhabitants in South Africa, dating back to about 44,000 years ago. And so sand material culture had many practices distinct from our earlier human ancestors, such as hunting with bows and arrows, using composite poisoned bone arrowheads, relatively short and light spears, organic compounds, and even creating accounting systems. These are all practices which are based on very modern practices that we employ today, mainly, to quote the article, egalitarianism, fluid band membership, and periods of aggregation during which socializing, ritual intensification, and gift exchange of items, which help consolidate social bonds, end of quote. Through looking at what can be seen as possibly the earliest evidence of an emergence of modern human culture, the sand lifestyle, we can see the emergence of something akin to a concept of an early form of human society, which comes with it its own cultural complexities and belief systems. And lastly, to conclude, why is this all important? Well, by tracing the evolution of our earliest hominin ancestors all the way to the most modern Homo sapiens, we can see how the evidence of changes in traits and technologies have ultimately led to the development of modern human culture and our society, which is why it is important that we make the connection between human biology and culture, because the two go hand in hand. This gives us the ability to understand how the most advanced parts of human culture is directly related to our evolution from early primates and later hominids, the evidence of which gives us insight into how and why our society has formed the way it has. Although it's commonly believed that, to quote the article again, unfortunately, it seems that human evolution was not a nice, neat trajectory of increasingly human-like traits and behaviors, Rather, it is emblematic of the untidy but exciting nature of the study of human evolution. End of quote. Although so many of our history remains unanswered, a lot of it can still be explained through the gradual process of developing certain traits or skills, which led to the development of modern human culture. And as a result, and as research of this nature continues, we could even use this broader understanding of our evolution and how it has impacted our behaviors in a way that can lead us to predicting how human culture and society can be further developed in the future. But for now, our ability to look into the past to explain our present way of life is certainly an extraordinary skill. And that's all I got. Thank you.